Catholicism is known to be one of the largest branches of Christianity, with a population of 1.3 billion followers around the world. Throughout our history, all Catholic priests have been known to be male. Within the discussion of human sexuality, the question has been brought about of whether or not women should be able to become ordained Catholic priests along with men, when generally speaking about gender equality. Most of the time, the answer to this question leans more towards women not being able to become Catholic priests, and here's why. With the religion of Catholicism being heavily based on Christianity, Catholic followers likewise believe their prophet to be Jesus Christ. With that being said, the Catholic religion wants its priests to be an accurate representation of Jesus himself, who is male. With this representation of Jesus Christ in mind, Catholicism uses this as one of the many reasons why women cannot become ordained Catholic priests. In other words, simply because they are female and not male like their prophet Jesus Christ. With that being said, however, with a similar representation to Jesus Christ, the teachings of Catholicism are going to ultimately be more authentic than the counter, as they are carrying out the legacy that Jesus would have continued had it not been for his death. Having a female as a priest would not preach the teachings in the same way. Along with this, historically, Jesus called 12 men to accompany him as his apostles back in the day. Catholic priests argue today that Jesus himself chose men to accompany him, so it only makes sense to assume that if Jesus were around today, he would choose only males to be Catholic priests over women. The source Gender Bias in the Human Catholic Church, Why Women Can't Be Priests, states, because Jesus chose only male disciples, the Church is adamant that Jesus meant for only males to be ordained into priesthood. This is not to say that any one gender is above another. It is just believed that men and women are here to serve different roles to prove their faithfulness to the religion. Jesus himself valued women very much, and that was exemplified by the many faithful women that followed him along his journey. On the other hand, those that advocate for women to be allowed to become ordained Catholic priests stress that we should move away from this gender bias and transition into a more gender equal standpoint. One of the many arguments that come about from this debate is that this tradition is carried on simply because of the limited rights that women had back then. Women were not seen to be fit leaders, and men could not stand the fact of them being so. This can be seen in the source Male Priesthood, the argument from sacred tradition, stating, many argue that Jesus' choice of only men was only conditioned by historical context. People of the time simply could not accept women as leaders. This claim is later debunked, as Jesus was a large advocate for women's rights back then and had many women in his life that he held on a pedestal. Not including women as ordained priests does not relate to the issue of gender equality, as Jesus proved that there is many other ways that women can prove they are devoted and faithful to the church. Continuing on, many feel that ordaining women as Catholic priests will allow us to have a fresh new perspective on the teachings of the religion, along with breaking that tradition that has been set in place for all this time. However, as stated before, the role of the Catholic priests, especially today, is to really embody Christ, to sort of legitimize the teachings and carry them on. For instance, with communions, the priests are there, as said before, to represent Christ in all his glory and continue to carry out his legacy with these authentic religious ceremonies. Women, being of a different gender, would not be able to embody Christ the same way. Taking the opposing view into consideration, the want to have a new inclusiveness between genders in terms of priesthood is totally understandable. However, with the points made above, it becomes clear as to the reasoning why the Catholic religion has continued to carry out the tradition of having only males as ordained priests. The Pope himself even advocates that the Church should stick to traditionality of priesthood. After taking all this into consideration, I do now understand the importance of putting yourself in the perspective of another when you are debating something as controversial as this. My initial reaction to the arguments posed by the opposing view is that they are not very strong or arguable at all. Although I did understand what the opposing view was trying to say, I still feel that the Catholic Church should rethink their decision in not allowing women to become ordained Catholic priests. There are ways in which they can be welcomed into priesthood with respect to the traditions set in stone by Jesus back in the day. Although my opinion still remains the same on the issue, I do agree that I am better able to understand the opposing view than I was before. Before researching this topic at all, I was not able to come up with one reason as to why women should not be able to become priests myself. However, after a while I may not agree, I do understand the argument that was posed by the opposing side of the issue. Along with this, while reading the research articles that were implemented in my writing, a lot of them lean towards the view of allowing women to become priests. Especially after hearing how much Jesus advocated for women's rights back then, I would absolutely believe that he would have no issue with women becoming ordained Catholic priests today. When it comes to human sexuality, the topic of ordaining women is related in terms of gender equality, sexism, and gender bias. It puts men on a pedestal over women. All in all, after taking both sides into consideration, I believe that there are many implications we can make for the future of this issue. First and foremost, I think that the Pope should rethink his decision on not allowing women to become Catholic priests in this day and age. In terms of this issue, I believe that society treats it like any other gender equality issue in our society, which is not giving it enough attention, and thought. When it comes to women's rights, society oftentimes turns a blind eye to the clear gaps that women have compared to men in our society. Nonetheless, we have made some immense progress when it comes to the rights of women compared to how it was when Jesus was around, but there's always room for improvement. For the future, I would hope that society takes this issue more seriously to the point where we actually see some change. However, at the rate we are going now, it may take some time for that to happen. As of right now, I unfortunately think that society will continue to turn a blind eye to this issue.